Today, I have a jam-packed Steam Deck news roundup. I talk about some of the new competition, I do a deep dive to see if Valve kept their Q3 promise, I give you a sick Steam Deck starter kit for the Steam Summer Sale, and I cover the Steam Deck downgrade that people are in arms about. Let's get into it. What's good, Deck Gang? I received a review unit of the Anbernic Win 600, and this is a budget handheld gaming PC that goes on sale today, so I want to start with that. Now, this is a solid device with some flaws. Let's start with the I/O. There are down-firing speakers and a headphone jack on the bottom. The power button and the volume rocker are on the left side. There's one USB-A and one USB-C on the top, and then on the right side is a button to toggle between mouse mode and pad mode, as well as a keyboard button. Notably, there is no microSD card slot here. Moving on to controls, Anbernic is known for their handhelds that are intended for emulation, usually for systems up to PlayStation 1 and maybe N64. In other words, their devices have been primarily used for 2D gaming, and the controls reflect that. The D-pad is very good, better than the Steam Deck, I'd say. I've been playing a lot of the recent Cuphead DLC, and I found it much better to play here on the Win 600 than on my Steam Deck, thanks to the quality of the D-pad. However, the analog sticks take a back seat. I don't mind the symmetrical orientation, I'm a big fan of the DualShock controllers, however this left analog stick is in fact difficult to use. The already small sticks are recessed in such a way that gives the sensation of less freedom of movement. I suppose they did this to make the Win 600 more friendly to store in a backpack, but I just found the sticks too hard to use in practice. Also reflecting their 2D focus is a lack of analog triggers. L2 and R2 are normal digital buttons, either firing or not. No analog input here. With regard to performance, this was designed to be a budget handheld. There are two models for sale. One with the AMD Silver Athlon 3020E and 128GB of storage, and another with the more powerful 3050E and 256GB of storage. Both ship with 8GB of RAM. I was sent the 3050E model, and yeah, it's pretty underpowered. Like I said, I played a lot of Cuphead on this, and even that was drawing a total of over 17 watts per hour on a 39 watt hour battery. So you'll get a little more than 2 hours of battery life playing Cuphead. My main problem with Win 600, however, was with the SteamOS support. I have to issue a bit of a mea culpa because I reported that Valve was collaborating with Anbernic for SteamOS support on this device. That is information I was given to by a couple of different people, and while it's likely true that Valve and Anbernic were collaborating at some point, there's no way that this is the result of that. I was hoping that the Win 600 could behave as a Steam Deck Mini, but I installed the SteamOS image that Anbernic officially provided, and it's basically just hollow ISO. That means the TDP controls don't work, controlling the GPU clock doesn't work, and pressing the power button does not put the device to sleep. Not to mention the chord combos don't work as you'd expect. Rather than hold guide and press A to get the quick access menu, you have to hold A and press guide, which is less than ideal because the A input will fire first. Honestly, it's a bad idea to advertise SteamOS support when this is the state that it's in. That said, I think the Win 600 is a competent handheld gaming PC, especially considering it's Anbernic's first. I do like it as a more portable handheld PC. I can actually put it in my pocket, and it goes well with 2D games like Cuphead, Blazing Chrome, Grapple Dog, and Hunt Down. To that end, it also pairs well with emulation, including PSP, Dreamcast, and some GameCube and Wii. Like I said, it goes on sale today, and I'll include a link in the description. If you buy within the first 48 hours, you can get a small discount. So the 3020E model is $299 for the first 48 hours and $325 after that. The 3050E model is $375 to start and $399 after that. You can see we're starting to creep into Steam Deck territory with the pricing, and you get a lot more for $400 with the Steam Deck. Even still, the Win 600 comes with a screen protector, and the price includes shipping. Definitely check it out if you're interested. On the opposite end of that, there are a couple of high-end devices on the way as well. And you know what else is high-end? These news videos I bring you every single week. If you agree, then hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell. I love making these videos, and if you enjoy watching them, then let it be known so that the algorithm can spread it to more people. So yeah, like I said, there are some high-end devices on the way, and they seem to be able to outpower the Steam Deck. Most of them are powered by the AMD 6800U, which yeah, is a step above what's in the deck. The GPD Win Max 2 crowdfunding campaign goes live on July 7th, but there are two more that I found even more interesting than the GPD Win Max 2. First, there is a new challenger that goes by the name of AOK Zoe, and they appear to be an offshoot of OneNet, who make the One X Player series handhelds. Despite being a newcomer, what's interesting here is that they are able to use the experience that OneNet already has, and they're coming right out of the gate with the 6800U model as their only model. I'm a little worried that Ioneo and Ein are spread too thin with too many models across the board, but I do hope that I'm wrong. AOK Zoe instead seem to be pushing a single model so far, and I believe their crowdfunding campaign also begins on the 7th. The last upcoming handheld gaming PC I want to talk about is the Ioneo Next 2. This one, more than any other handheld PC, appears to attempt to compete with the Steam Deck. It even has the touchpads to boot. Additionally, it's probably going to ship with their custom Linux distro, iOS. Now, not a lot has been said about this device, and given that it's in the Ioneo's Next line, it will be a premium device with a premium price. Still, I like to see that these companies are incorporating something like touchpads and really going after the full breadth of really what makes Steam Deck so good. And so add all this up with the previously announced devices from Aya and Ein, and we just have a lot of handheld PCs to choose from. In a way, the market is beginning to feel like it might get oversaturated, but then again, there are a lot of gaming laptops to choose from too, so maybe it's not that big of a deal. Nonetheless, the elephant in the room is that these companies are all trying to stay alive and thrive in a market that Valve is dominating. Valve may have said that they want to cooperate with other handheld makers, but they may also be the gentle giant that could inadvertently crush these smaller would-be partners. And that's why I think these companies are all going to have to make sure they come correct. Don't overextend yourself too much, and do create quality products that people have a reason to buy. They don't need an audience as large as Valve does, but they have to create something that's not redundant in a post-Steam Deck world. I'm looking forward to having more options in the market, and I'll be keeping an eye on this. Let's move on to some Steam Deck specific news, starting with Q3 shipments. Last week, Valve promised to start doubling their shipments in Q3. It's too early to tell how long they can stick to this commitment, but I can say that so far, my data shows that they are keeping true to their word. We have enough data for 256 and 512GB models in the US and UK regions. We're missing data for the EU region and for the 64GB model, but if we exclude those, we can see that they kept a pretty steady output from April 7th until June 27th, but for June 30th and July 4th, they started shipping approximately 2.5 times what they were shipping prior. So I think they're absolutely hitting their goal so far, and production has indeed ramped up. That is really exciting to see. So what have you been playing lately? The new Cuphead DLC released last week, and I've been playing that. It's excellent. I've gotten a few hours with it. I'm like a fifth of the way through it, and I've been enjoying the new character, Miss Chalice. She's been called easy mode with her double jump and invincible roll, but the designers balanced that out a bit by not allowing you to equip any charms when using her. Overall, I'm really impressed with this DLC. I've been playing it on both the Steam Deck and the Win 600, and I can say it's a bit more challenging on the Steam Deck with the Steam Deck's D-pad, which leads me to a question. How do you all play Cuphead and games like it? Do you use the D-pad or the left analog stick? My kid uses the analog stick for everything, but I still use the D-pad for most 2D games. Let me know what you do down in the comments. Okay, so we only have a couple days left in the Steam Summer Sale. I didn't have a chance to make a full recommendation video, but I still wanted to provide you with some suggestions. So these suggestions are going to be cheap games only. Here are the rules. Number 1, they have to be under $5 US. Number 2, they have to be a 50% or more discount. And number 3, they have to play well on the Steam Deck. In fact, I wanted this to be a list that will help you build out your Steam Deck collection with like 20 games for under $75 total. That's a lot of games, so I'm going to rapid fire some of these descriptions. Let's do it. First up is Assault Android Cactus. This is a bullet hell twin stick shooter that should be welcome in any gamer's collection. It has great local multiplayer and plays extremely well using remote play for online. It's 75% off and pretty much a must buy. Speaking of bullet hells, how about everyone's favorite shoot 'em up, Ikaruga? It's $5. You can play in the horizontal tate mode on the Steam Deck, and it doesn't really matter if you own it already because who doesn't want to play this game portably? Another game to double dip on is Dishonored. This game is only $2 on Steam right now. It still holds up well and is deck verified. Next up is a pair of 3D platformers that you can buy for $1 total. Tori 3D and Tori 2 are both really solid platformers, and like I said, the pair can be had for $1, so what are you waiting for? Gato Roboto is a short but really solid black and white Metroidvania. It's whimsical, and I mean, you play as a cat in a mech, what's not to love? If you're feeling froggy, this is part of a really good bundle called the Black and White bundle. Every game in that bundle is great, including Minute and the Return of the Obra Dinn. I love Gris. This is a 2D platformer with gorgeous hand-drawn art, and it takes you on a beautiful journey. The Verge has called it one of the most beautiful games ever made, and I can't argue that. Gunpoint is a Steam classic. As far as I know, this game has never made it to consoles thanks to its sort of mouse-oriented controls. This actually makes it a perfect fit for the Steam Deck's touchpads. Anyway, this is a stealth platformer where you use the pointer to set the arc of your jump. It's sort of a hybrid between turn-based and real-time. I really love this game. Pick it up for $2 or at least try the free demo. On the other hand is Inside, which most of you watching probably know about by now. Still, if you haven't played it, now's the time. It's $5 and one of the best cinematic platformers I've ever played. A no-brainer for the Steam Deck collection on a budget. Here's a deep discount I didn't expect. Shadow Tactics. This turn-based title is 90% off, so it comes down to $4. It's Steam Deck verified and gets amazing reviews. If you like strategy titles, pick this one up. Wuppo is an ingenious puzzle-based Metroidvania. It's really impossible to describe, but it's charming and difficult to put down. It's the type of game that will put a smile on your face no matter how surly you are. Anyway, it's also 90% off and can be had for $1.50. Yoku's Island Express is a pinball Metroidvania. Like, what more do you need to hear? It's really fun and is currently 80% off. Lovely Planet Remix is one of my favorite time trial style first-person shooters. It's got a few different gameplay styles, but the goal is the same throughout. Kill all the enemies and reach the goal as quickly as possible. Similarly, Cyberhook is a first-person parkour shooter with a Tron-style aesthetic. This game is a blast and currently under $4 US. Keeping in the Tron-style visuals is Octahedron. This is a seriously overlooked arcade-style precision platformer published by Square Enix, of all people. I broke my rule a bit here because this one is actually $5.19, but it's totally worth it. Alright, I saved some of the best for last here. Fight and Rage is the top 1 or 2 beat 'em ups I've ever played, bar none. It's either this game or Streets of Rage 4, and this one is available for $5, so it wins the matchup today. Bleed 1 and 2 are a pair of action platformers that play more like Devil May Cry than Contra, style on your foes with slow-mo, air dashes, and parries. The pair are available for $3.81. Everyone knows about Quake, but if for some reason you don't own it on Steam yet, you need to. The remaster is amazing and packed full of content, including a Waves mode and a couple of exclusive expansions. It's $4, but once again, if you're feeling froggy, check out other remasters by Night Dive Studios like Power Slave, Turok, and Doom 64. Night Dive Studios are really experts at their crafts, and Quake is pretty much a quintessential example of that. Okay, and finally, this one breaks my $5 rule, but it's worth it, folks, I promise. Not enough people talk about Huntdown. This is literally one of my favorite games ever. It's 66% off and available for $6.79. It has amazing gritty pixel art. It's an action platformer kind of between Contra and Mega Man. Your shots are deliberate, and there are all these different enemy types and secrets that make this game highly replayable. I really don't understand why this game doesn't get talked about more, but I highly suggest you pick it up. So those are my recommendations. That's a total of 20 games for $71.53. I can't think of a better way to start your Steam Deck journey than this. But if you have some suggestions that I didn't call out, then be sure to leave it in the comments so that others can see them too. A couple weeks ago, I made a deck versus Switch video, and it's not really a versus video, but I go over this phenomenon that I'm starting to refer to as the deck effect. Thanks to Starlogical for helping coin the phrase here. But the idea is that the Steam Deck sort of grows on people that are not necessarily sold on it becoming a main device. Initially, they can't really see how the Steam Deck fits into their lives, either because they already have a PC or because they perceive it to be rather large. But over time, the combination of flexibility and convenience becomes increasingly attractive. That's the deck effect, and I bring it up today because there was an article published by GameSpot that ruffled some feathers. It's titled, "Steam Deck Has Ruined Nintendo Directs for Me." And the subtitle reads, quote, "I used to marvel at all the indie games I could finally play. Now I've already got access to them elsewhere for cheaper," end quote. This whole piece really exemplifies the deck effect quite well, and if you watch the Nintendo Direct Mini, you probably know exactly what he's talking about, because virtually all of those games announced there will be available on Steam, and you could play them better on a Steam Deck than you could on a Switch. Here's how the author, Steve Watts, closes his piece. Quote, The days of "I hope it comes to Switch" may be over. After years of not being a PC gamer, Steam Deck has opened a new world of early access to games that I so often had to wait for a console port of previously. That means I can get it faster, cheaper, and more future-proofed on Steam. The Steam Deck won't ultimately be a Switch killer, but it has taken some of the luster out of what used to make Nintendo Directs feel so special to me. End quote. I can get it faster, cheaper, and more future-proofed on Steam. I mean, that nails it, right? That's what makes this platform so special. That is the Deck effect. Alright, the last story I have for today is surrounding what people are perceiving to be a Steam Deck downgrade. Ever since before launch, I've been reporting that Valve will be sourcing supplies from different manufacturers and that this can cause some hiccups down the line. We've seen this come true with 2 or more different RAM suppliers, and of course we saw it come true with the 2 different fan models, with one being particularly high-pitched and annoying. The latest example of this is a downgraded SSD. The SSD on the 256 and 512GB model was advertised to be a 4-lane PCIe 3 SSD. Valve has since had to adjust and have started shipping decks with a 2-lane PCIe 3 SSD. They've also changed the verbiage to reflect this, but some customers are feeling slighted. I'm personally not comfortable calling this a downgrade. There's no PC game today that would be impacted by this change, as far as I know, and moreover, the alternative would be fewer Steam Decks being shipped. As always, you can reasonably criticize Valve for a lack of communication and transparency, but outside of that, I personally find this to be a non-issue. I think it's a perfectly reasonable decision to make this change in favor of keeping a steady supply while not really sacrificing anything tangible in terms of performance. But that's just my 2 cents. I want to know if you feel differently. What do you think Valve should have done here and why? So that's going to do it for today's news roundup. I'm currently working on my Q3 review of the Steam Deck and we'll have that out soon, so keep an eye out for that. If you want to be part of my awesome Patreon friends, then check me out over there. I appreciate all the help I can get. And until next time, my fine friends, Deck Gang out. Goodbye!